One thing I have often wondered about in the Harry Potter books is how did Dumbledore manage to stay so well informed, even beyond what would be considered reasonable for an intelligent, observant man? I mean, how did he know to distract the Minister of Magic in Prisoner of Azkaban? And how did he know to go back for Harry at the end of the Philosopher's Stone? And even before that, how did he know exactly where the Dursleys were having Harry sleep every night, almost instantaneously? Digging through the books, looking for an answer to this question, I found an answer that is pretty definitively true, that tells us how Albus Dumbledore is getting a lot of information about what's going on around the castle. But not only that, I believe I've found information that hints at another theory. A theory that could show how Dumbledore is specifically knowing so much about Harry Potter himself. And I believe between these two methods of gathering information, it's enough that it can explain all the times that Dumbledore seemed to know things he shouldn't. My first theory was that Albus Dumbledore had a time turner, and he would use this time turner to live through events and learn whatever he needed to learn about what's happening, and then he'd go back in time and do a dry run. He'd be able to do it again with the knowledge already of what had happened. The thing is, the more I looked into this theory and the more I thought about it, the more I realized we kind of need to reject it outright. For one thing, time turners have a 5-hour travel limit. At least those that are distributed by the Ministry of Magic do. The problem here is that Dumbledore seems to know things immediately. 5 hours is not enough time for him to learn everything, go back and know everything that had happened. There are situations where more than 5 hours passes before Albus would have a chance to learn the material. For example, at the end of Philosopher's Stone, Harry was out cold for quite a while, so Dumbledore would not have had a chance to learn everything that had happened down there. And yet the moment Harry wakes up, Dumbledore's there, knowing what happened. Now, it is possible that Dumbledore could have gotten his hands on one of those super secret special time turners like we saw in Cursed Child, and he just had this hidden. Nobody knew about it, and this is how he was managing to go back further, go back as far as he needs to. But if that were the case, I feel like there's some evidence that points against that as well. You see, if Albus Dumbledore really had such unlimited access to time travel, there's a lot of things that I would think he would do differently. Maybe prevent himself from putting on a cursed ring. Maybe prevent some children from touching a prize-winning cup that would transport them to a graveyard to be killed. There's a lot of things that he could have done differently if he had time travel by his side. All things considered, I think if he could time travel like that, he'd have been able to weave together a bit better of a plan. So with time turners out of the way as an option, I had to find something a little more concrete, something that can really tell us what is happening. And lo and behold, the books actually outright tell us how Dumbledore is managing to get so much information, or at least to move information around. You see, Albus Dumbledore actually really genuinely has a secret army of informants. People that are able to move about quickly between different locations, instantaneously move to different parts of the castle, despite the fact that apparition can't happen within the walls of the castle. They could be right next to somebody who's telling a secret, listen to the whole thing, and that person would be none the wiser that they are being eavesdropped on, despite the fact that they're not actually hidden. And once any bit of information is known and discovered by these individuals, these amazing spy informants, they could instantaneously pop back to Dumbledore's office to let him know what they discovered. And it's because they essentially live in his office, or more specifically, on his wall. And that's right, Dumbledore's gallery of past headmaster portraits is more than just a memorial. They are going around getting information to Dumbledore or distributing information at his bequest. In fact, Armando Dibbitt's portrait tells us outright in Order of the Phoenix. He says that the portraits are honor-bound to give aid to the current headmaster of Hogwarts. And they take this very seriously. When Dumbledore tells some of them to go out and spread information or to go seek out information, when Harry comes to them reporting that Mr. Weasley has been attacked, they pop out of their portrait. They can go to the Ministry of Magic to see what's happening there. They can go to St. Mungo's to see what's happening there. They can jump around the castle wherever they need to go. This army of informants is essentially a spy network that allows Dumbledore to eavesdrop through the walls themselves. Apparition can't happen within the walls of Hogwarts. but the pictures can still move between their own pictures. Every portrait can move instantaneously to any other portrait that is of them. And not only that, but they can move into other portraits as well. Slide into a neighboring portrait. We see the fat lady when she runs away from Sirius Black. She goes through other portraits and hides in another one of those. They can move all over the castle. And we know the castle is filled with portraits. The staircases themselves, the walls are lined with them. And there are portraits in numerous other halls and classrooms as well. At the very least, we know that there are headmaster portraits, in addition to there being a version of that past headmaster in the headmaster's office. There's one in the East Wing, one in the trophy room, there's one in the stairwell, at least one in the stairwell, and there's at least 4 other locations around the castle where there are headmasters' portraits. Those headmasters can jump between those portraits and Dumbledore's. They can also move between those portraits and any other portrait in the school. This makes the whole school ripe for eavesdropping. And if any important information is discovered, they can pop back in an instant and immediately let Dumbledore know. And this could actually be used to explain exactly how Dumbledore knew about Harry and Hermione time traveling. You see, the portraits are all over the place. And so if one of them reports seeing Harry and Hermione going somewhere and another one reports at the same time seeing Harry and Hermione going somewhere else, Dumbledore will know there's 2 Harrys and 2 Hermiones. And it wouldn't take much for him to put the pieces together to figure out what had just happened. Not only that, there are portraits in the hospital wing. One of them could have seen Harry and Hermione just pop up out of thin air and then tuck the time turner into Hermione's shirt. They would see Harry and Hermione arriving at the end of their time traveling. Then they could let Dumbledore know, and that's pretty definitive that he would know what is happening there. Once Dumbledore knows that they had traveled back in time, he would be able to pretty quickly decipher why. And this would allow him to put the plan in place and know that he has to distract the Minister of Magic and give them enough time to save Buckbeak. It all lines up for Dumbledore to get the information he needs to set up his plan using the information from the portraits. The thing is, this doesn't account for all the times that Dumbledore seems to know more than he should. I mean, looking at Philosopher's Stone itself, the book resolves itself, the final confrontation between Harry and Quirrell-Mort, it is just the 2 of them down there. They have an exchange and things happen. And Harry blacks out after defeating, or while defeating, Quirrell-Mort. When Harry finally comes to, days later, in the hospital wing, Dumbledore is sitting over him, smiling. At this point, Dumbledore already knows everything that happened down there. Dumbledore says to Harry, what transpired in the dungeons between Harry and Professor Quirrell is a complete secret. So naturally, the whole school knows. How? How could anyone know what transpired down there? Ron and Hermione would already be taking off in the other direction. They wouldn't be anywhere near to know what had happened. Harry himself was blacked out for a couple of days. He couldn't have told anyone, and I don't think Quirrell was in any shape to be spreading these tales either. So how would Dumbledore know what happened down there? I think it's possible that Dumbledore was actually keeping a much closer eye on Harry than any of us realized. The answer to how can actually be found in the illustrated version of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. In this book, there is an image of Diagon Alley, and there is a shop that sells magical glass items. And on the outside of the shop, they are advertising for the sale of scrying mirrors. Well, in magic, scrying is the ability to see elsewhere through a device. A scrying mirror, therefore, sounds like it would be fairly similar to what Sirius had given to Harry, something that he could look into and see out somewhere else. If this place sold glassware, specifically glassware that you could scry through, that you could look into one object and see out something else, then it makes sense for Dumbledore to look into using something like that to keep an eye on Harry. Is there any object made of glass that Harry and Dumbledore always have with them? Glasses. Most of the people in the Harry Potter stories don't wear glasses, but there are a couple of key exceptions. Harry, being one of them, always needs to wear his glasses. His eyesight is terrible. So he always has his round glasses on him. Dumbledore as well has his half-moon spectacles constantly on him as well. So it's possible that Albus Dumbledore managed to enchant Harry's glasses at some point. Maybe he snuck into the Dursleys or just apparated inside at some point after Harry got his glasses while they're all asleep. He enchanted those glasses or replaced them with the specific glass he needs. And then his glasses are the other side of the enchantment, allowing him at any point to activate his glasses and to see out of Harry's, to see exactly what Harry is doing, where he is, what he's facing. This would actually explain so much. There are so many events that Albus Dumbledore seems completely in the dark about. A basilisk is sneaking around the school, and he seems to have no idea that it's a basilisk. Barty Crouch Jr. is impersonating Mad-Eye Moody and teaching classes right under Dumbledore's nose, and he has no idea. And yet, everything that Harry does, Dumbledore seems to know about it immediately. He seems to have an idea of what is happening to Harry pretty quickly once it starts happening. In Philosopher's Stone, when Harry is making his way through the dungeons to face Professor Quirrell, Albus Dumbledore tells Harry that at that moment he was on his way to London when he suddenly realized he'd be needed elsewhere, and he makes his way back to Hogwarts. He never expands and tells us why. I mean, he did feel like he was needed at the Ministry of Magic and was making his way out there, so he was tricked. So what changed his mind? It could be that on his way, he decided to check in on Harry and discovered he was in the dungeons on his way to face Professor Quirrell, or maybe even already there. And at that point, Dumbledore realized this is a trick, and then he gets back. In Chamber of Secrets, when Fawkes shows up to help Harry fight the basilisk, Dumbledore says, "Harry, you must have shown me a lot of loyalty to have summoned Fawkes to you." I mean, he could just be covering things up. It could actually be that he happened to check in on Harry and saw that Harry was in the Chamber of Secrets and sent Fawkes out there to help him. When Dumbledore seems to know exactly what Harry is going through, it could be that he had just checked on Harry at that time. And that's how he's able to keep such a close eye on what Harry is doing, because he is literally seeing through Harry's eyes, through his glasses. Now, you may not want to believe that Albus Dumbledore would invade Harry's privacy to that extent, and I don't blame you. There's a lot of love for Dumbledore. I love the character myself. But you have to admit, it would explain a lot. If he had his army of past headmasters letting him know what's happening around the castle, and simultaneously he can keep an eye on the one person he most wants to guide towards a very particular future. A future that, for at least a while, he knows Harry has to die. If he's willing to accept that gray area, maybe he's able to accept a little more gray. Anyway, that is my theory for you today. I hope you liked it, and if I'm missing anything, let me know. I always love hearing your feedback in the comment section. And as always, thank you for watching.